Going live. Let's see who's joining us on the stream here. Excellent. Let's see who's coming on with us.
You have to tag me.
I see nobody's tagged. Okay. Hello, hello. We're on day number 3 here with Lee Noto about keeping the pleasure and the play alive. We're going to get into our introductions in just a moment. Just waiting for people to join us. We've had a really riveting morning already. Alrighty. Yeah, Garrett's here. Thanks for being here. Chloe's here. Thanks, Chloe. Hey, Chloe. So if you just, and just click on it right there. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Awesome. Let's just get started talking about who you are and the magic that you bring into the world, Lee Noto. I'm just going to introduce you briefly and then love to hear it in your own words. So Lee is an intimacy coach, and she specializes in supporting powerful women to help them create untamed intimacy in their lives so that they can be a connected, powerful couple with that person it is that they invite into their world. So please tell us more, Lee.
Oops. Audio. I think she froze.
It's all good. It's all good. We're just waiting for Lee. I see people are coming into the stream. Keep on coming. And we'll start getting into those introductions. Also, Lee has a bunch of activities planned for us, so we're going to get into those as well. I see Dana on the stream. I see Anne here. I see Joanne. I see Ula. Don't worry, Lee will be right back, and we're going to continue because this is a really good one. She's coming. Just hang tight. And of course, this is a super playful session that we're going to have because that's what Lee's about.
Mm-hmm.
She's about keeping the play alive. Awesome. And just let me know how you're doing. I know Chloe's doing well. Hello, Chloe. Thanks for the emojis, everyone. Thanks, Joanne. Good to see you back. Here she is. Awesome.
Okay. Wow, my technology is having a Sunday kind of day.
It's all good.
All right, and we're back.
Yeah, so tell us about this magic that you bring into the world.
Thank you. Yes, so as you'd mentioned, I am an intimacy coach and sensuality specialist. And my mission here on this earth in this lifetime is to allow people to open up to the love within themselves, first and foremost, because that's what all intimacy requires, is epic amounts of self-love. And then as we go on that journey of self-love, what does it mean to invite another person into that space with us? And how do we share that love with someone else? And once, as we do that, then how are we creating what I call untamed intimacy? So that deep emotional connection with our beloved and anyone in our lives, be it romantic or non. How are we creating sustained connection? And for our romantic partner, how are we keeping that desire alive? And how are we having the most mind-blowing sex we could ever imagine? Because let's be real, who doesn't want to have that? So that's my mission on this earth, and to really be able to generate conversations about these topics that are free of shame and judgment and that are full of love and curiosity.
How brilliant. I mean, curiosity is just like totally changing the mind frame there, you know?
Yeah.
That is huge. And Joanne says, thank you, Lee, and Social Evolving Summit.
Aw, hey, Joanne.
How sweet. So, with all of these things going on, first, I just want to tap into how you're doing as a human being. You know, what does your personal life look like in terms of these concepts that you're talking about? And we don't have to get too personal, but you know, there's this opportunity here that we have to evolve as opposed to distance. And I'd love to know how
Right.
that's playing out for you. Like, what part of the world are you even in right now?
Sure. And I have no problem getting personal. I will give you all the nitty gritty. Yeah. Because it's so relevant right now. It is so relevant. So I am calling in from Austin, Texas,
Nice.
where I have the great pleasure of being rooted, certainly until all of this passes and, you know, into the foreseeable future. And the vibes are really great and strong over here. You know, there's a beautiful community of people who are really supporting one another. And it's really keeping the fear at bay, because that, in my opinion, is the true virus. You know, no doubt this biological virus is having a great impact on the world, and I want to acknowledge that. And a part of this pandemic is the fear. And so being a part of a community that's full of love and support has really made all the difference in my life. And the more we can be leaders in creating that, if you're not finding that that's around you, be the leader and step up. That's my first invitation to anyone who's listening, because that is what the world needs right now. More love, a lot more love. So I'm doing splendidly right now as a human. And I can say this because the last 2 or 3 weeks have been very challenging. Very, very challenging. I was sharing a little bit with y'all before we went live that the last few weeks have been something like a dark night of the soul for me. And what I'm finding in the larger context of what's happening in our world right now is we're getting the opportunity in a very timely moment to go inward. And we're literally being forced to stay inside our homes. And that's at the macro scale. The micro scale is that we have an opportunity to go inside this home, the home that we inhabit as humans, our heart, our soul, and to really ask what systems are not functioning optimally. The way we're seeing our healthcare system, our financial system, our education system at an impasse right now, literally breaking down. We too, as humans, have internal systems that are outdated. Like, we are all requiring some sort of software update, the way our phones require it. And so we are literally being shown the things that no longer work. And so what I've been seeing for myself is all of my habits that were conditioned from a very early age based on what I saw growing up around being defensive in conflict, denying that things happen in moments of conflict, becoming very angry and rageful and lashing out in conflict, shutting down and going numb in conflict as a safety mechanism when I go into freeze. Every single thing that is there for me to acknowledge, witness, love on, and resolve is coming up, which is why I think for so many people, it feels like all of the shit's coming up right now and it's almost unbearable. Yes, because this is the point of revolution and evolution. And when you're in a video game and you're trying to move on to the next level of your evolution as a character, there's always a boss battle. And you have to sort of fight the boss and succeed before you can move on. And if you don't, you either go back to the beginning of the level or you die in the game. And that's quite literally what's happening. You know, unfortunately, some people are experiencing physical death in their human bodies, and others are experiencing massive ego deaths. And that is what is required on our path to move on to the next level of consciousness. So I've been dealing with all of those things and then some and then some. And when it's right in this conversation, I will definitely share practices that have been ushering me into the next level.
Wow, yes, please. Oh my goodness. And I have to say that, being here with everyone, for these 3 days and coming to this point is just always really refreshing, to be with someone, who is just really revitalized, is really thriving and who's really embodying all of this wonderful energy of the rebirth, that it is that we're going through. So thank you for sharing the journey and also where you are at this moment. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. And I want to share with everyone that this is available to all of you. The rebirth, the evolution, the moving into the person that you always dreamed of being. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what traumas you've incurred. And I'm not saying that that's not important to recognize and acknowledge. And what we're being asked to do right now, in my belief, is we're being asked to create a bigger container, a container that envelops our fear. And it allows it to be there. It allows the fear to be there. It allows the trauma to be there. We're not trying to push it away or deny that any of it's happening. However, what we are doing is we're adding what can be in the container. So we're adding love. We're expanding the container so love can exist, so joy can exist, so optimal health and immunity can exist. And when we expand our container emotionally, physically, and spiritually, all parts of us can be there and we can become that person that we've always imagined being. And it's all a matter of a choice.
Absolutely. I'm just going to read you a few comments that we have going on here. Joanne says, "Go Lee." Garrett says, "Tell us a joke." Allison says, "Hi, me too. I can totally relate." And also welcome Fred and welcome Anna to the stream.
You said Chloe's or no? And then Chloe said, "Woo! Fellow Austin friend."
She's in Austin too, yeah.
What's up, Chloe?
Awesome. So yeah, I'd love to get into, some of the practical and now-ish things that we can do.
For sure. Okay. So I am going to share some practices that I have had to innovate during these last few weeks, because I tell you what, in these last few weeks, have gone through all of my tools. And I got to the end of the rope one day and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? I've used all the tools in my toolbox. I don't know what else to do. And so I had to create some new ones, because I'll be transparent in saying that the partner that I'm with in my relationship right now, we got to a point over and over and over again during this time where the words were, if this doesn't change, this isn't going to work anymore. If this happens, if this thing keeps happening, we can't go on like this because this isn't healthy. We don't feel optimal in who we are as humans. And in fact, we were bringing out the worst in each other, which is not who we are. And so I was really at an impasse in that I was going to, there was a fork in the road. I was going to go on path A or path B. And one of the paths I wasn't going to like very much. And so my partner, Ani, and I, we really had to innovate practices that were going to work now, because this is a situation that we've never faced before. So the old tools, while they helped, weren't doing the trick. So here's one that has been so helpful for me. And this is when I would notice all of my habits and tendencies come up that have been there most of my life around becoming defensive, getting really angry, denying the situation, not acknowledging his experience, pummeling through his words so I could get my point in, not really listening for what he was saying. I mean, you guys, I did it all. So you are not alone. You did all the things. And so what I realized I needed first in these situations in order to pause where I was at and receive the situation and receive my partner was I needed to know that I was safe. And while it seems illogical, like I'm in a nice house, I have food, I have water, of course I'm safe. Yes, to the cognitive brain, I am safe. However, to the body and the physiology that has never had an experience like this before, with all the things that are happening in the world and the massive amounts of fear that's being generated by the collective, my physiology did not feel safe. So every time something would come up in conflict, I'd put my hands on my body immediately. I would take a deep breath into my belly, expanding it out. Okay, I am safe. I am safe. And I would touch my body. And this particular motion, squeezing your arms, starts to activate the whole brain state because you're crossing over left to right, right to left. So this really brings you back into the present moment, activates a whole brain state versus, some part of the brain that we might be operating from in fight or flight, and touching the body, letting yourself know that you're here, you're safe. And I would do this every time conflict arose, every single time. And I let him know, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. So if you see me doing it, here's why, and here's what my body needs to, create a change. And so he was totally on board. Once, after about a week of doing this consistently, once my body started becoming conditioned to know that it was safe, then I started sort of training myself with a physical cue. Every time a conflict would arise, I would snap, just like that. And that snap would cue me in auditorily, visually, in the moment. And I would say, Lee, what do you want to do right now? And I would have an option. Do I want to continue down the road of being defensive, or do I want to choose something different? And man, did it hurt sometimes to choose something different in that moment. However, on the other side of it, I was like, thank God that's what I chose, because it created a completely different outcome. And that let me know how powerful I am, how powerful we all are in being the creators of our reality. And so I would snap. Some people, snap a hair tie or a rubber band, some sort of physical cue. Maybe it's a little shake to sort of get the body moving, to say, okay, you have a choice. What are you going to choose? And I would be, very loving with myself, but quite relentless in being like, nope, if you want to break this habit that's been conditioned in for 30 plus years, it's going to hurt a little bit. It's a growing pain. It's like teething. And so I would snap, and I would do that consistently. Every time I would snap, and I'd be like, okay. And then I would choose to come back into the situation with a different perspective, one that seemed more constructive. And as I did that for about a week consistently, then all of a sudden it started to become natural. And now my purview is bigger, and I find that I'm more curious about the situation versus feeling like I need to protect myself and be right or not be wrong. I'm more open to receiving feedback. I'm more open-hearted to myself, to my partner, and to creating a different situation than I would have created in the past. And so that was sort of my 3-step process through this. And it's been really, really helpful because we are in close quarters these days with people, and, we need a little space as humans. And so this is a practice that can create some space internally.
Got it. Do you mind playing through this just a little bit to see how it is like, suppose I'm doing this practice, right? How could, for instance, Dell support me in that?
Ooh, beautiful question. So here's what I've been telling everyone, all of my clients, all of my, Facebook friends, family. Now is the time to over communicate, communicate everything, because we weren't in a situation where we necessarily had to before, but now we do. And in fact, it makes the best situation for everyone. So what I would invite everyone to do is go inward first and really get clear on what your needs are. And it's okay if you don't know what that is at first, because most of us have never thought, what are my needs in a relationship? What are my needs in a moment of conflict? What are my needs when I feel like I've been hijacked and my prefrontal cortex has gone offline and I'm about to, punch someone in the face? What do I need in that moment? And run through the list of scenarios and really write down what the needs are and share that with your partner. Say, hey, when this happens, here's what it feels like inside my body. It feels like my chest is closing in and my throat's tightening up. So that Dell can then say, wow, that must be really intense for you. Tell me more about that. And so what I'd say for you, Kaí, is to really write down the list of needs. And then, and for you too as well, Dell. And then for Dell to really approach the situation with curiosity. Tell me more about that. What is that like for you? Where do you feel that in your body? What emotions are coming up? And just be like a little school kid, like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, tell me more. I want to know. And so when those moments happen, Dell can be your ally in saying, okay, I know what's happening for her right now. And Kaí, it's super important too that you communicate as much as possible and say like, all right, Dell, here's what's happening right now. I'm feeling triggered and I have a tightness in my chest. And just let him know what's happening so that he can be an ally for you and be like, all right, baby, do you want me to hold you? Or saying like, hey, what I need right now is like 5 minutes. Is that okay for you if I take 5 minutes for myself and then I come back to the conversation? And he can say, yeah, that's totally fine. Or, hey, you know what? That's fine. And what I need is for you to just acknowledge what happened first before you take the 5 minutes. And it becomes a subtle and loving negotiation so that both people's needs are being met. So getting clear on what the needs are in any given scenario where there's conflict based on what's been happening, and making requests for those needs and ensuring that you get practice articulating them. And something I share with clients is do some role play in moments of neutrality when you're not in the conflict, so that you can practice with the language and you can actually hear what it sounds like to come out of your mouth. You can generate the vibrational output of what it's like to say, here's what I am feeling and here is what I need. We're not used to saying those things. And so get practice. And listen, I recommend all kinds of role play, if you know what I mean.
Keeping it fresh.
That role play, definitely that too. But this is a really powerful role play to practice during this time, because this is what's going to allow us to move on to the next level of our communication and the way we connect with one another.
Absolutely. Dill, you want to read some of the comments coming through?
Yeah. So Allison's had a couple comments. First one's love it. Oh, I skipped one. Another one's I can relate. She also said, beautiful message. Thank you. And this is such a grounding tool. And Kiana, she responded, this is great advice. Thank you so much. Heart emoji.
Wow.
I also want to welcome Naya and Cinia and Anne to the live feed. Thank you so much for being here. This is really great so far.
Yeah. I love the way she explains it, for like setting that open container space for a relationship to like relate. Yeah, it's just so powerful. And then also to like be able to just express yourself in the moment, compared to like, okay, this is how we were when we first met. I want you to stay this way. Oh,
Right.
you're not this way anymore. What's going on? Like this type of thing. And yeah, I personally I used to feel that way. Like when things started changing relationship, I felt insecure. Oh my gosh, she's changing. Like, oh, does she not want me anymore? Like, what's going on? Why she's doing these new things or whatever like that? And we actually had to talk about our relationship about, was it a couple weeks ago? I don't know. I lost track of time now. But we said the thing that we love about our relationship right now is the fact of we accept who we are in the moment, each other as we are, but we also open a space to know that we're going to constantly evolve. And by setting a space and knowing that we're going to be changing, we're going to be evolving, it allows the relationship to evolve to another level. And also the understanding that, hey, I may like something one way when we first talked, and now I don't like it that way. I like something else new. But I love the fact, like you said, setting that space for the open container and being a kid, like the curiosity type of thing as a kid. Ooh, cool toy.
Yeah,
Boop, boop,
we're
boop,
both
boop.
good at that.
Exactly.
Awesome. And yes, Allison says, awesome wisdom. Thank you.
You all are so welcome.
So this amazing technology, let's call it that, that you're experiencing, how is it that you're able to have an inventory of it? Like, do you literally go through your toolbox and your tools and be like, okay, I could use this one or this one or this one right now? What does that look like when these situations come up?
Well, mostly what it looks like is all the tools escape me when these situations come up. So it's like the toolbox just got thrown out the window, right? Because, when we're in, a heightened emotional state and, what we call conflict, what happens is, we start to become activated. So we kind of climb the scale of fight or fight in, a lot of us find ourselves in freeze. And what I can say for myself personally, given, some of the trauma that I experienced as a child early on in my life, the first place my body went to was freeze. And that's one of the most elevated states we can be in. Because what happens at freeze is physiologically, our body thinks it's preparing for death. And so we freeze and our body emits chemicals that act as an analgesic or a numbing agent. And that is our body's intelligence and divine way of saying, all right, if you're going to die right now, let it not be too painful. So here are some numbing chemicals, transition on, friend.
Wow.
And, in most of these situations, in all of these situations, I'm not on the verge of actual death. However, I am always on the verge of an ego death somehow. And I found that I would completely shut down. I would go numb. I'd go offline. I'd become stoic. I'd become expressionless. And in that place, I had no access to any of my tools, none whatsoever. So I really wasn't keeping a clear inventory of it. But in my moments of neutrality and in my moments of joy, I would journal back on the experience. So if you find that you don't have access to the inventory while you're in the moment to start, then start creating the inventory list when you're at neutral or when you're in joy. Because at that point, you have a different perspective at which you look at your tools and everything you have available to you, all your resources. And then when you're in the moment of fight or flight or freeze or something, then you had recently inventoried your tools or what you can do differently. And that is closer to the forefront of your mind than it might have been if you hadn't taken the time to sit down and really inquire into what's available to you at any given moment.
That makes a lot of sense. So that, I can be in my happy place and contribute to my future self, from here,
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
I just discovered it.
That's kind of like a timeless investment, all of these things that you're talking about, these tools, and also, preparing for our best selves.
Yeah. And what the downloads that I've been getting the last few days have been pretty mind-blowing in that, I can say this with full confidence to you two and to anyone who's tuning into this broadcast, is that we all have a mission here. And I wouldn't be surprised if each person tuning in had some sort of clue about what their mission is, and or have a deep knowing of what their mission is. And the message that I've been getting over the last few days is that in order for us to fulfill on our missions as the humans that we are in this life, a few things, among other things, have to be present. We have to be taking the utmost care of our human vessels, right? And by utmost care, yes, that means everyday things like what we're putting in our bodies as food and drink, the thoughts we're keeping, the beliefs that we have about ourselves and the world around us, what kinds of media and content we're consuming, how we move our bodies and how we receive exercise. So those are some key components. And what also matters, and I mean, number one most important thing in my belief is, in order for us to fulfill on our missions in the way that our spirit has intended for us, we've got to create a space for unconditional self-love. Because the kinds of messages that we are meant to transmit as powerful spiritual beings who are in this human container only come from a place of unconditional love. Nothing else exists outside of that. And in fact, unconditional love envelops everything else that we perceive to be there, like fear, like hatred, like jealousy and envy and rage. And there's nothing wrong with those things. And if we know that we have a mission to be on in this life, these are the things that must be present in order for us to really succeed at that.
Got it. I mean, it makes so much sense, especially now with the current circumstances that we're in. It's like we're being reminded that, hey, it's not just now that we can take care of our bodies, but we can take care of our bodies every day.
Yes.
So the same thing that you're talking about with these crises, we can take care of our relationships when they're going really well also.
Yes.
This is like total like mind-blowing still going on over here.
Oh, yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. Well, and it's always easier to take care of things when things are okay and, like, I guess, quote unquote normal. And then it's the challenging parts in which, like, really taking care of it is, like, very important. Like, i.e. what's happening in the external world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that relationship, just that powerful impact that you can do, like what Lee mentioned, of that unconditional love. And the number one relationship, of course, even before a relationship with somebody externally, is that relationship with yourself. And once you get into that unconditional love for yourself, it's like, hey, I'm good, so everybody else is good. I can take care of everybody else. I can be here for somebody else because I don't need to receive love. I don't need to receive appreciation or anything like that because I'm good. Here, I want to share with you. Here. Have some unconditional love.
Exactly. You hit it spot on. And we have this misconception, I mean, I know at least I did, that unconditional love was a destination, like somewhere that I had to arrive to, and that once I parked my car there, I could stay there. Not the case, folks. I mean, if somebody knows how to do it, let me know. What it is a practice, a choice. Every single moment, it is a choice. We can choose love or we can choose something else.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the power to make that choice. And so what are we choosing? Because we can look at our external world and it is a direct reflection of what's happening internally. So if you don't like what's happening in the outside world, there's a good opportunity for you to look within and say, hey, what's happening here that might want some love from me, or that might want some more attention and intention in how I'm creating my internal landscape, because my external landscape is growing a bunch of weeds and I want to have a nicely manicured dinosaur shaped bush. Whatever it is.
Weeding that garden, absolutely.
Yeah. It reminded me of the powerful quote by Wayne Dyer, in which he says, you have a choice. Either you can be a host to God or a hostage to your ego.
That's a sexy man right there. Not Wayne
Yeah.
Dyer, you.
I haven't taken that way. It's like sexy yes. Cool.
Nice. I was like, I would describe Wayne Dyer as a lot of things. Sexy wasn't one that popped into my mind, but sure.
I like when there's another thing he said, like in regards to intimacy, since we're on the topic of sex. He was like, "Hi, I'm Wayne Dyer, and I almost have sex every day. I almost have it on Monday. I almost have it on Tuesday. I almost have it on Wednesday."
Nice.
While we're laughing, I just want to welcome Terry and Christina to the live feed. So happy to have you here. All of your comments are really appreciated. This is a really fun conversation so far. And Lee, while we're here, it's so cool. I just love the words that you use to describe what you do because they're words that I just forget, in my everyday vocabulary. And those two words are pleasure and play.
Whew.
Like how can we get to those places when things seem so dire? No pun intended.
Yeah. When things seem so Wayne Dyer. So the first thing is recognizing that those places are already here. There's no place to get to. It seems like that in our linear minds that we have to go from point A to point B. Everything's already on the plane that we exist on. Point A, B, C, D, Z, all of it. And so when we notice or when we call our awareness to the fact that everything we want already exists because time does not exist how we think it does, it's all right here, right now. The riches that we want, the wealth, the health, the love, everything exists right here, right now. And that's an esoteric seeming concept, but once you come into contact with it, you'll never look at things the same way again. And so if pleasure and play exist as an option, what could that look like in the moment? And so here's most often what it looks like for me. When I'm in a place of rigidity and sternness and anger and righteousness because I want to be right about something and I want him to be wrong, then the first thing I can do to start to allow my container to expand so that something like pleasure and play can be in my purview is I'll shake it out. I will literally stop where I am. I'll stand up if I'm sitting and I will shake my whole body like I'm just, going wild. I'll shake my head. I'll flutter my lips. I'll wag my hands and feet. And this is really great because it releases some of the charge from our body. So we have a lot of charge when we're in conflict. And so what the body wants to do is it wants to complete its activation cycle. And I'm borrowing on concepts from somatic experiencing, which is, Peter Levine's work. And so our body wants to complete the activation cycle. And when we push down and we suppress, where do we think that charge is going? It's getting stored in our body somewhere. And that is what gets stored as suppressed anger, suppressed emotion. And that gets lodged into our tissues and our organs. And that creates disease. And it lowers our immune system. And so now is the time we want to be really strong in our immune response. So we want to allow the activation cycle to complete. And the good news is it doesn't have to complete as words being spewed at someone. It can be completed through breath, like taking some deep breaths and really getting it out. It can be completed through sound. So a lot of times, you could hear me breathing in and just going, ah, and making all sorts of sounds, whatever sound wants to come out. And I'll scream, I'll bark, I'll hiss. I mean, I look like a wild animal, but we are truly. And then through movement, and this is how we can direct energy through our bodies. So shaking it out, stretching, going for a run, doing a quick sprint with proper warm up. So moving moving the energy through the body instead of shutting down, suppressing, or letting it out through hurtful language. And that's something that's really, really helpful. And then once I've done that, I don't have to force pleasure or play. Pleasure or play is just there. All I've done is create the space for it to exist.
Got it. So the key is making space for it.
Yes.
That's why I'm sitting here like, whew.
God. So it's like those, those extra shoes that we want to get. It's like, well, we can't really have them because they can't fit in our closet. So we just, make a little space.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, that is super amazing. Excellent. Let me see what's going on here on the live feed. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Yes, absolutely. So we're at this point where we've got 10 minutes and there's so many questions, that I want to ask. But what do you feel would be the most important advice for someone to just have and to consider, during this time so that they can continue their movement forward without, starting to judge all of the things that have been going on, for this period that we've been staying at home?
Yeah. Let me consult for a moment. So the concept that I've shared a few times is really what is, a clear message to me, and that is expanding our containers. And that I mean that in every way. So expanding our perspective, expanding our emotional capacity, expanding our spiritual capacity, our physical capacity. We don't have to try and banish the things we don't want. We don't have to sit here, and this is my experience, we don't have to sit here and say, I don't want to feel afraid anymore. I don't want to feel fearful. I don't want this conflict, right? Because that keeps us focused on the things that we don't want. And it creates more of that because our mind doesn't know I don't want. It just sees fear, conflict, drama. It just sees the operative word. So we have a real opportunity to start to shift into asking ourselves, well, what do I want? And many of us will find that, shit, I have no idea. I haven't spent any time thinking about that. I haven't planned for it. So my invitation to everyone is be relentless. And for anyone who knows me, I'm a very gentle person. I'm gentle with a lot of my clients and being the person who holds a lot of love for them. And I've been pretty boot camp like with a lot of my clients lately too, because we're in a really interesting time right now. And we have a choice. We're either going to do the things that we kept doing or we're going to do something else. And that's the reality of it. And so if we want to move into the direction that we imagine for ourselves of mega riches and wealth and health and connection and love and peace on the earth and a healthy earth, then we have to make different choices and we have to do what's necessary to start to let our bodies know that it's safe to go in a different direction. And when we can first identify what we want, then we can start to allow ourselves to open to the ideas that are naturally going to flow through that tell us, okay, here's how to get it. All we have to know is the what. That's our only job as humans. Know the what. Get super clear on the what it is that you want. I promise you, if you do that, and you can message me if this doesn't happen for you, but I promise you, if you get really clear on the what and you keep fine tuning that, the how will happen. That is the job of the universe, of the cosmic powers that be. And I don't know how else to explain it, but that is the co-creation of this. The how will appear for us. Just take some time to get clear on what it is you want to move toward, what you want for yourself, and start acting like that's already happening for you. Because that puts you in the frequency that it would take for you to have those things. So when I already act as if I've got $1 million in my bank account and I love doing what I'm doing, which I do, the wealth just comes into me. And I don't know how it happens, but it does. And I put myself in that place because there's no mistakes that happen when we create that kind of reality for ourselves. So, in short, what I'm inviting people to do is to move toward what we want. You don't have to worry about what it is you don't want. That will naturally fall away. That doesn't take much effort. And in fact, the fear can still be in the infinite container that we're creating for ourselves. And when we move toward what we want, there are going to be so many things in that container that are going to love on the fear, that are going to accept the fear, that are going to acknowledge the fear, that are going to nurture, and coo the fear into a lullaby. And that will just happen naturally. And that is our job, to know the what and to expand the container. And that's all we have to do right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super powerful and super helpful. Oh my goodness. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. Yeah, making checking out the things that I actually want to create in this world, but at the same time, that really does tend to fall to the wayside for me personally when there's all these things that are surmounting. So thank you so much for that reminder.
My pleasure. Something I'll share with you specifically, Kaí, since you just mentioned it, is here's what I've been doing, because that's been falling to the wayside for me too. In my journal, and I just picked up journaling again because I had really, avoided it for some time. But in my journal, I keep a Post-it, and I move the Post-it every day to the next page so that when I journal the next page, I see it. And I have, a few core questions that I ask. So some of my questions are, what do you stand for? Or what are you taking a stand for today? Why? Why are you taking this stand? Who is this stand for? Because that connects me into the bigger picture. Sometimes when I'm only doing things for me, I can become disconnected from it. But if I know this is for other people, especially as women, we will buck up when we know we're doing this for our tribe and for our community. We'll be like, oh, there's nothing stopping me now. How are you committing to yourself and your relationship today? How are you committing to your clients? And then I also ask, what beliefs do you want to reinforce? And so I ask myself these questions every day. I journal about it every single day. And that keeps it really alive and relevant for me, because otherwise, if it's a matter of mere thought, if my mind left to its own devices can think about some pretty gnarly things. So this really creates enough structure for me to cue my brain in the morning to know, okay, here's the choice I'm making. Here's how I'm creating my day. And that's what it's going to be. And it allows me to access that choice every moment of the day that feels challenging. Where I'm like, okay, it's more top of mind. And so that's been super helpful for me.
Wow. What a powerful way to conclude this segment. And again, I'm totally taking notes. Lee, thank you so much for being here. Oh my goodness, there's so much love in the comments. Thank you everyone for being here and participating. These are really, really amazing, practical ways to just kickstart that evolution from no matter what place that we are. So I appreciate you, Lee. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you both so much. I love you too.
Love you too, Lee.
Love you, Lee. Thank you, everyone. See you in 10 minutes.